behind every successful man, there is a strong woman. And behind every successful woman is herself. I'm not going to prove this saying right or wrong today. What I'd like to say that I do really believe that strong, independent, and successful women are the base for any thriving society. History has known many great women, like Kings Mary Curie, Joan of Arc, Prime Ministers Indira Gandhi and Margaret Thatcher, and many more. We, as a nation, should also be proud of great women, representatives of our nation. And today, I'd like to tell you a story about one of them. 3,000 years ago, on vast steppes of modern Kazakhstan, there lived the tribes of the Sacs and the Massagets. A story about emperors who reigned over them in 6th century BC. Our great ancestor, Queen Umar, or better known as Tamiris. The story I'm going to tell you is an episode from the book by Bulat Jandarбек of the Sacs. And by telling you this story, when listening to it, you would understand how courageous, strong, and independent that woman was. A woman hastily entered the camp. The scale of her armor, of her silver armor, glistened in the sun as she put down the tent flap. Having spotted her snoring husband Rustam in the corner of the tent, she frowned. Rustam lay on his back with his enormous arms stretched, not a man, a mere mountain. Drunk again, she thought to herself, and frowned. She paced the tent and continued to think out loud. So it's a war with Persians. What else can we do? She sat herself beside her drunk husband, looked at him, and involuntarily her thoughts carried her back to the times when she first met him. The King Kavad's son, an invincible warrior, the great Rustam, heir to the Tigrahout tribe. That time, her father, the ruler of the Massagets, arranged a fighting tournament in honor of their allies, the Tigrahout tribe, before their joint campaign against the rival tribes. The Tigrahout were represented by a small party of well-armed and strong men, led by the king's eldest son, Rustam. And the Massagets knew that Rustam was someone to take into account, so the party was well received with due honor and respect. The fame about the invincible athlete, the great warrior Rustam, had long ago reached Massagets, and the crowds of people were coming in flocks to see that great man through their own eyes. Huge, slow, seemingly sluggish, and even clumsy, Rustam surprisingly transformed during the fight. He jokingly would throw the soldiers on their backs. The heavy stones he threw were flown further than anybody else's. And he hit all the aims without missing. And it seems like he did everything with an ease, without any effort. The Massaget soldiers tasted the bitterness of failure to the fullest. Young girls mocked at them. Children laughed at them, and old men reprimanded them. Finally, there was no one left who would try to fight and win Rustam. At this moment, the Massaget princess, Tamiris, riding on her black horse, appeared in the fighting arena. She looked stunning. Her slender waist was pulled together by a white leather warrior belt. There was gold plates on it, minced with images of animals and birds, and it showed that this belt belonged to a person of a high rank. She had a helmet of intricate work, and her golden hair was puffing under it. And it was not decisive whether the gloss of her bronze helmet or the gloss of her golden hair were glistening in the sun. She had a shield in her left hand and a sword in her right. The crowd was silent. They knew that something was going to happen. Rustam was in a very difficult situation. He didn't want to fight Tamiris, but on the other hand, he didn't know how to refuse a battle without offending the princess. At that moment, Tamiris attacked him with a violent push. Unexpected. Rustam wanted to spare the princess at first, but her unexpected attack caught him off guard and made furious. He forgot that she was a mere teenage girl. She became an opponent he wanted to crush and destroy. Having reflected her first attacks, he pushed on her with all his power and pressure. But Tamiris was very dexterous, and she began skillfully maneuvering with amazing dexterity and flexibility. Seeing that violent persistence, tenacity, Rustam fought again with strength and pressure. Finally, the physical strength began to prevail over dexterity, and Tamiris had a very rough time, and she knew that she was going to lose, and the crowd knew it as well. Everybody kept silent. Finally, Rustam managed to knock out the sword of her hands and put her down on a helpless posture. Rustam leaned over her for the final strike and to look in his opponent's eye, to see his pathetic look and to glory over his victory. But what he saw in these sky blue almond-shaped eyes perplexed him. There was no sign of horror or fear in them. On the contrary, they expressed anger, hatred, and contempt, as if they were crying, "Kill me!" And Rustam realized that for this young girl, death was nothing compared to defeat. He stood there for a moment and understood that the defeat by such a beauty was nothing compared to his uncountable victories. So he threw aside his sword and bowed his head in defeat. The crowd roared. The master guests appreciated the knightly gesture by Rustam. But at the next moment, the crowd even exulted in a more ecstatic way, because Tamiris threw her maiden belt to Rustam's feet, declaring him to be her chosen one. Tamiris glanced at Rustam once again, rose to her feet, and said out loud, "What else can we do? We're gonna fight, and we're gonna win." And so they did. Persians, led by the king Cyrus the Great, wanted to invade the Saxon Damascus. He promised that he would soak them in blood. After numerous battles, in one of which King Rustam was killed, the armies were led by the Queen Tamiris, and she finally defeated Cyrus. When she beheaded him, he put his head into a bowl full of blood and said, "You wanted blood, so drink it up to the bottom."